Great. Welcome, everyone. I hope you've been taking care of yourselves. The ICE raids in our city have been horrifying. Yesterday, the brother of someone I know was released after 4 days in the Van Nuys jail. No charges. He was arrested last Thursday for filming an ICE action in Pacoima. This afternoon, I received a text from a league member in Long Beach. Her nephew is being deported. He came here with his family from Laos when he was 4. He's now in his 40s, married, with a child and a mortgage. His past crime was being caught with a marijuana cigarette when he was 19. So let's all take a breath and gather our thoughts as we focus on what is a sanctuary city. My colleague Linnea Wren has come down with a cold, a hazard of babysitting for young grandchildren. So unfortunately, you will need to listen to my voice the whole time. It's indeed unfortunate because Linnea's background is in archaeology and art history, and she has prepared the most interesting background on sanctuary cities. Hopefully, she will feel well enough to interject now and then, but if she doesn't, we'll understand. You will be receiving our slides as well as a list of resources in a few days. Please type your questions into the chat as we go along. We will address them at the end of the presentation. There is no standard of definition of a sanctuary jurisdiction. The term is generally applied to jurisdictions that limit their cooperation with national immigration authorities. Sanctuary jurisdictions aim to create a safe environment for immigrants. This map shows you the locations of sanctuary jurisdictions. The squares are cities and counties. The circles are states. You'll notice that some sanctuary cities are in states that have without sanctuary state laws. For instance, New Mexico. I see Louisiana and Idaho also. There are jurisdictions, but not the state.
I hate to interrupt, but I'm not seeing the chart.
Oh, you're not seeing the slides?
No, I'm not. Maybe I'm the only one that isn't.
Oh,
Sorry.
let's check with other people. Can you write in the chat if you're unable to see the slides?
Oops.
Okay, Mary says she can see the slides.
I
Penny,
think ask whoever that was if they have checked, up at the very top of your screen, it will say meeting or it will say Carolina Goodman's screen. So you want to make sure that you are clicked on Carolina Goodman's screen.
Susan, are you there yet? I mean, can you see the
No,
slide?
no. All right, I click on your screen and then it says Zoom ratio, show video panel, request remote control, annotate, exit full screen. No, I'm not seeing it.
All right. Gina says go to view options and select side-by-side mode.
Side-by-side speaker or gallery or, okay, got it. Thank you very much, Gina.
You're welcome.
Okay, now my screen, I was poking around here and now my screen's a little messed up, but you know what? I'm just gonna plow on, even though my screen is messed up. Okay, back to the slides. The term sanctuary is associated with holiness and set apart. The Hebrew Bible recounts the creation of cities of refuge. In the case of accidental death, a person under suspicion could flee to a city of refuge. That person was then protected from vengeance by the family of the slain. Greek and Roman societies both adopted the concept of refuge and places of asylum and sanctuary. In the early 4th century, Christian churches had their own protections. Sanctuary was part of law, making it illegal for secular authorities to remove even a murder suspect. The protection of a church was symbolic, a stall tactic, providing fugitives a time to negotiate with alleged victims or go into permanent exile. As secular states became more powerful, they prohibited sanctuary locations outside their control and claimed full authority to enter churches. However, ideas of refuge did not disappear. Some American colonies defied prohibition on church asylum and gave support to fugitives. This happens to be the oldest synagogue in the United States. It's in Rhode Island. It gave sanctuary to persons of all religious persuasions, persons who were unwelcome in other colonies. Enslaved people who escaped bondage and fled along the Underground Railroad gained protection, food, and shelter from abolitionists. The current sanctuary movement first developed in the 60s as an attempt to protect Americans who resisted the draft and opposed the Vietnam War. Churches in several cities announced that they would be sanctuaries for draft resistors. Many resistors and those giving them sanctuary were arrested. In the late 70s and 80s, the sanctuary movement was reactivated. Its purpose was to provide safe haven for Central American refugees fleeing civil conflict. The movement was a response to federal immigration policies that made obtaining asylum difficult for Central Americans. At its peak, many faith groups committed to providing shelter, protection, material goods, and often legal advice to Central American refugees. These faith groups included Roman Catholics, Orthodox Christians, Protestants, Jews, Quakers, and Mennonites. The movement expanded from places of worship to cities, states, and even regional jails. Berkeley became the first sanctuary city during the Vietnam War. In 1971, when the aircraft carrier Coral Sea was set to ship off from Alameda, at least 1,000 crew members formed an organization called Stop Our Ship and signed an anti-war petition. A 2 to 3 day standoff ensued, pitting federal and state law enforcement against anti-war protesters, the University Lutheran Chapel, and the city of Berkeley. In 71, the Berkeley City Council made history by adopting a resolution calling itself a city of refuge, the first in the nation for any crew members, and designating the ULC as a city-approved sanctuary. The resolution also placed restrictions on local police and service providers, limiting their participation in the enforcement of federal laws related to military service. Since its initial resolution, Berkeley has passed 10 additional resolutions, including sanctuary for Arab immigrants in 1991, a hate-free zone in 2001, opposition to the Patriot Act in 2002, the reaffirmation of Berkeley as a city of refuge in 2007, the limitation of cooperation with the DHS and ICE. In 1979, Los Angeles City Council adopted Special Order 40, barring LAPD officers from initiating contact with a person solely to determine their immigration status. Other cities enacted ordinances limiting cooperation with national immigration authorities. Those cities include Berkeley, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Santa Ana, San Diego, Oakland, Richmond, and Sacramento. Since 1979, both the state of California and the city of Los Angeles have passed additional measures limiting the cooperation of state and city jurisdictions with DHS and ICE. More measures were enacted in response to the 2016 election and the subsequent actions of Donald Trump in his first term. In January 2017, President Trump signed Executive Order 13768. The order was President Trump's initiative to oppose jurisdictions that refused to collaborate with federal immigration authorities and step up deportations of illegal immigrants. In response, the California legislature passed SB 54, the California Values Act. Governor Brown signed the legislation in October of 2017. This is what SB 54 says. It prevents state and local law enforcement agencies from using their resources on behalf of federal immigration enforcement agencies, except in cases where undocumented immigrants have been convicted of serious or violent felonies. A legal challenge by the federal government was unsuccessful in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. The Supreme Court declined to hear the case. Excuse me. In March 2017, I have to switch screens, sorry. After President Trump signed that executive order to step up deportations, former Mayor Eric Garcetti signed Executive Directive 20, designating Los Angeles a city of safety, refuge, and opportunity for all. Since Los Angeles was founded in 1781, it has always been a city of immigrants. The executive directive reaffirmed Special Order 40 to protect immigrant Angelenos and prohibited the use of city resources to assist ICE arrests. It directed city departments to provide equal access to city services to all Angelenos, regardless of immigration status. It also prohibited the collection of immigration information by any city employee unless legally required to do so. 2 years later, LA City Council adopted a resolution declaring Los Angeles a city of sanctuary. The resolution refuted Trump's administration's claim that DACA recipients are likely to become members of violent gangs. 90% of DACA recipients are employed and 45 are in school. It reaffirmed that any city resources used to enforce federal immigration law by local police would be unconstitutional. Of course, LAPD would honor warrants for detainees when issued by a judicial body. And the resolution supported Executive Director 20, issued by Mayor Garcetti. 5 years later, after adopting the sanctuary resolution, City Council unanimously adopted an ordinance to establish the city of Los Angeles as a sanctuary city. An ordinance puts the sanctuary policies permanently into municipal law. It closed the gap that appeared in past policies to prohibit the direct or indirect sharing of data with federal immigration authorities. We'll see in a few minutes that this remains an issue. The ordinance acknowledged that Special Order 40 allows LAPD to communicate with ICE about migrants convicted of serious offenses. So why did LA think a sanctuary ordinance was important? These are facts from Los Angeles County. We're home to one of the largest and most diverse immigrant communities in the nation. 3.3 million immigrants reside in Los Angeles County. That's 1/3 of our population. 1.5 million undocumented residents in Los Angeles County, more than 1 in 10, are potentially at risk for deportation. 50% of our children in Los Angeles County have at least one immigrant parent. Council members Nithya Raman, Eunices Hernandez, and Hugo Soto Martinez made the motion to enact the sanctuary ordinance. These are statements they made about the importance of their own immigrant roots. When Donald Trump was elected last November, we feared there would be wholesale deportations. He's already proven his readiness to do so. This is a photo of children in detention in 2018. Donald Trump ran on an anti-immigrant campaign. The appointment of Jim McDonnell as LAPD chief in November 2024 was also alarming to immigrant rights advocates, excuse me. As sheriff of Los Angeles County from 2014 to 2018, Jim McDonnell had been a prominent critic of SB 54, the California Values Act. Last February, LAPD seemed to be assisting an ICE enforcement action in South LA. Chief McDonnell clarified that LAPD had provided traffic control in order to protect the public in the neighborhood, and emphasized that LAPD does not participate in civil immigration enforcement. As we have seen in Los Angeles, sanctuary does not shield people from deportation. After serving a jail sentence in Los Angeles, an individual may not be detained or transferred to ICE, except when there is a warrant. In Arizona versus US in 2017, the Supreme Court stated that Congress deliberately chose not to criminalize the mere fact of being present in the country without authorization. A 2020 study by the National Academy of Sciences found that jurisdictions with sanctuary policies reduced by half the number of deportations of people with no criminal convictions, but did not affect the number of deportations of people with violent convictions. Jurisdictions with sanctuary policies are safer and more economically viable. Data sharing with federal immigration agencies remains a real problem. LAPD gathers information that is automatically posted to databases accessible by FBI, hence available to ICE. Field interviews yield personal information. Body-worn cameras and in-car video use facial recognition software. Automatic license plate readers capture the date, time, and place where your car was. Celebrite gathers phone data. There is social media surveillance and fingerprint booking at the time of an arrest. All of this data happens to be available to ICE. There are fusion centers where surveillance and data sharing hubs share information because FBI, DEA, and ICE analysts actually sit together in the same room. There is arbitrary labeling of people as gang affiliated and therefore are surveilled simply by the tattoos that they have or their friendship circle. You have seen these signs, see something, say something. Whenever you report an activity, a report is logged and stored, whether or not there was actually something nefarious going on. So please think twice when you make that call. Participation in multi-agency task forces can result in collateral arrests. For example, when a suspect is arrested, often the others in the area are also arrested. ICE claims to target dangerous illegal immigrants who have final deportation orders. However, we have seen high-profile cases where people who have legal residency or are U.S. citizens are deported without due process. People are arrested after courthouse check-in appointments outside of Home Depot and restaurants, car washes and factories. Neighborhood gardeners and sidewalk vendors are snatched up and disappeared. Families have difficulty finding their loved ones. ICE now taps into databases with sensitive personal information, for instance, your voter registration record. Some immigrants have been concerned about visiting the hospital or sending their children to school for fear of being arrested. The Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy estimates that undocumented immigrants contribute nearly $100 billion in taxes in 2022. If I thought my tax information could be shared with ICE, I might consider not filing my taxes. Airlines are not directly sharing information with ICE, but a national clearinghouse owned by 9 major airlines has been selling passenger names, financial information, and flight itineraries to the federal government. So if we're a sanctuary city, why is ICE here? On June 7th, Trump activated the California National Guard, sending 2,000 troops to LA. On June 9th, Trump activated an additional 2,000 National Guard members and 700 Marines. Trump invoked U.S. Code Title 10. I can't read this number. Well, you can read the number. Okay, Section 12406, National Guard in Federal Service. It reads, 1, the United States or any of the Commonwealths or possessions is invaded or is in danger of invasion by a foreign nation. 2, there's a rebellion or danger of a rebellion against the authority of the government of the United States. 3, the president is unable with regular forces to execute the laws of the United States. The president may call into federal service members and units of the National Guard of any state in such numbers as he considers necessary to repel the invasion, suppress the rebellion, or execute those laws. Orders for these purposes shall be issued through the governors of the United States. California Values Act. LA is a sanctuary city. How have we responded to the invocation of that code? Newsom responded with a lawsuit seeking relief against the federalization of the California National Guard to Los Angeles. However, the appeals court upheld Trump's control of the California National Guard. Trump has not invoked the Insurrection Act, which would allow National Guard members, Marines, and other branches of the U.S. Armed Forces to enforce domestic law enforcement. Communities have been terrorized by armed officers with masks, as well as deployment of National Guard and U.S. Marines. Protests have been peaceful. Some protesters have been provoked into damaging property and assaulting officers. Looting has taken place, but not by those who care about protecting immigrants. The unrest was limited to 2 square miles in a city of 500 square miles. I attended a meeting with the LA Controller's Office to get a sense of the costs stemming from all protests where LAPD caused harm during crowd control. Of the 34 cases in 2020 that have been resolved, the city paid out over $20 million, and there are still 21 cases unresolved. I observed a police commission meeting where the chief praised his officers for their restraint under dangerous conditions. He also said they were investigating violations of policy by individual officers. The chief emphasized that people who break the law will be arrested. He also stressed that when anyone is being assaulted, LAPD will respond, even if it's an ICE agent. I met with the new LAPD Inspector General to make sure that he knows about the law AB 48 on the restrictions of the use of military equipment during crowd control. I expressed frustration that LAPD wasn't doing anything different until they gathered all the data and wrote an after-action report on the use of force. The Inspector General said he had been in command centers during protests and in follow-up meetings with LAPD leadership. He assured me that guidance was constantly being given to line officers. This slide is a summary of AB 48 that governs the use of less lethal weapons during crowd control. Please remember, less lethal weapons can be lethal. We're talking about things like tear gas, rubber bullets, pepper spray, and tasers. Starting on the right side, it's illegal to fire indiscriminately into a group of people. It's illegal to target people who are not engaged in a violent act. It's illegal to target a person's head, neck, or vital organs. The situations on the left are illegal unless law enforcement did all of the following things. Did law enforcement attempt reasonable de-escalation? Did law enforcement announce that less lethal weapons will be used? And did they announce it in appropriate languages if the crowd was a Spanish-speaking group? Did law enforcement give people the chance to leave? Were less lethal weapons used solely for curfew, of a threat, or non-compliance from a directive that a law enforcement made? Were less lethal weapons used without an objectively reasonable threat to life or serious bodily injury? Were less lethal weapons used in an objectively safe or lawful situation? It's important for you to know these things when you are out protesting. So these are some of the resources that you can have. And remember, you'll get these slides so you don't have to write them all down now. The Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights, CHIRLA, advocates for immigrant rights in LA County and throughout the nation. They also hold in-person and virtual weekly workshops. LWV California has partnered with CHIRLA for many years. Represent LA is a public-private partnership that provides legal representation to immigrants in custody or in the community, as well as those who face deportation. They host an immigrant workshop on the last Wednesday of every month. LWVGLA has been a strong supporter of this coalition since it began in 2017 after Trump was first elected. There's a rapid response hotline on this slide, as well as a legal resource hotline, and 2 websites that list many resources for immigrants: the California Office of Attorney General and the Los Angeles County Office of Immigrant Affairs. As you know, all of the League's education and advocacy is based on positions that we take after thorough study of an issue. This is the immigration position. promote reunification of immediate families, meet the economic, business, and employment needs of the United States, be responsive to those facing political persecution or humanitarian crises, and provide for student visas, ensure fair treatment under the law for all persons, in a transition to a reformed system, support provisions for unauthorized immigrants already in the country to earn legal status. There are other positions that apply. We have one on civil liberties, which supports our First Amendment rights. We have another position on federalism and state authority, where we support the protection of state and local government from federal overreach. And we have a position on the use of military force. The League opposes unauthorized military deployment for civilian law enforcement purposes. The League of Women Voters of California has an immigration interest group, and you can sign up by emailing Catherine Gavsey. LWV California and LWV United States issued a joint statement condemning federal force. This is only the first of 5 paragraphs. You can click on that link at the top of the slide later to see the rest of their joint statement, but I'll read this one to you. The president villainizing protesters is nothing but a performance to direct violence against the American people. By deploying the National Guard against the wishes of state officials, the administration intends to cause fear and distract from their inhumane immigration raids. We're lucky that Linnea has talked with Rachel Van Landingham, a legal expert in national security. She's going to be our speaker in September. Hopefully, we have gotten a commitment from her, but the date is still not confirmed. So she'll be talking about the deployment of National Guard and Marines, the possible invocation of the Insurrection Act, potential declaration of martial law. We want to know, what is the legal basis of each, what processes must be followed, and what are the consequences. Linnea, did you want to say something?
Yes, so Rachel Van Landingham spent 20 years in the U.S. Air Force as a lawyer. She's a reformist lawyer, so she is very critical of Trump's giving pardons to people to service members who've been convicted of excessive use of force. She feels that weakens not just the moral standing of the U.S., but actually the military ability to discipline its own troops. She talks a lot about what is going on in terms of the federalization of the National Guard. She talks a lot about what the Insurrection Act allows for and how it would be invoked, and of course the consequences of martial law, both things that Trump has hinted he would do. So she's been a prosecutor for the Air Force, a reformist. She's now a professor at Southwestern Law School in Los Angeles. She's often quoted in the Washington Post, New York Times. She's on the news. She's terrific.
Thank you, Linnea, for finding her. I'm looking forward to her talk in September. Anne Frank's words are frustratingly true today. Terrible things are happening outside. Poor, helpless people are being dragged out of their homes. Families are torn apart. Men, women, and children are separated. Children come home from school and find their parents have disappeared. So Linnea's been looking at the chat to see if we can answer some of your questions.
We're going to stop the recording now.
Okay, great. Linnea, are you able to do that? Or should I do that?